You'll see that our flyer this year is called, very simply, it's got Jesus Christ, if you know how you say it, Jesus Christ Mass. And it's very curious, isn't it, that how we don't often see the word Jesus, the name Jesus, with the description of Christmas. And I wanted us to talk about Jesus for a little while and to see if we can discover a little bit more about him. And I'm going to pray actually as we start. So Heavenly Father, I just thank you that each person here is so precious to you. And I pray that tonight that you will shine something into each of our lives that we might discover a glimmer of something new, maybe about you, or to rediscover something about ourselves. And I pray that in your name. Amen. So we caught up in the end there, in that reading for Hajaz read so beautifully. It's such a complex passage to read, but it's from John 17. And really what you're doing is you're catching up with the baby. Only the baby is now a grown-up man and has been out and about doing the kind of things that we were singing about, particularly in that amazing Mary's Boy song where we talked about, it described what this baby would grow up to do, to touch blind, to speak, truth into the nation, to challenge the orthodoxy and all that stuff, and to release this sense of peace, something more. That's all going on in that song. And we're now catching up with this young man, around about 30 years old, who's grown up, and we're catching him on the night before, as Hajaz said, the night before he gets arrested, and he knows what's going to happen. He's got a prophetic insight. He knows he's going to be betrayed. It talks about that again in one of the other songs, and in that reading, that there's someone who's going to give him up, if you like. And we see this constant battle, don't we, in our world between good and evil. I think that's fairly clear. And so Jesus knows what's coming. And we get like, if you like, to eavesdrop on a conversation that he has with his father. And and he starts off, he says, Father, the hour has come. The hour has come. And some of you will be thinking, will he go on for an hour tonight when he's speaking, or will it perhaps be a little bit short? So just to reassure you, I won't be an hour, and I won't even be half an hour. I might be a quarter of an hour. But it's good, isn't it? Every now and again. Okay, so what is the hour that we're in at the moment? Obviously we've got the Christmas hour that's approaching. What other hours are coming? We know this week we've got an election hour, which is quite fun in December. It's a bit different. Why not? We've had lots of Brexit hours this year. Yeah, we may have quite a few next year. Who knows? But with the election hour, is it a sense of judgment hour? Which way will we swing on Thursday? This year has been a year when we've heard about the climate hour, with that brave young Scandinavian. On a slightly lighter note, it was also the year, and we've got some slides actually. I want to show you a very important slide for me. There it is. Yeah. Yeah. Stokes and Leach, the longest hour at Headingley. And I've even got you there. For those of you who've got long sight, you'll be able to see that he's actually Jack Leach is taking off his glasses famously, and he's just wiping his glasses, which got steamed up, before he faces the fastest bowlers in the world with a very, very hard ball, and that went on for about an hour. For those of you who don't know cricket, it was amazing. So, what about your hour? What's the hour for you? What's the hour for you right now? What's the hour in your life? The hours of your life. So tomorrow morning, you've got the Monday morning hour, you've got the working hour, you've maybe got some of you got children hour. Children being born hour. Maybe this next year will be a marrying hour for you, a leaving home hour, a new job hour. Maybe it'll be a special holiday. What's the meaning of your hour? How do you do the hour when your mortality is shaken? It's good to think about the hour you're in. Let's take a walk through this hour with Jesus. There are 4 quarters in an hour, so there's 4 ways we can look at this hour with him. And I want to give you some encouragement about a dimension to life that I believe we're all supposed to be able to enjoy our hours with. And it starts off, isn't it? Jesus, it says in the scripture, it says, Jesus looked up to heaven. He looked up. And we're made to look up. We're not made to be informed first by looking around, to seeing what the immediate demand on life is, to drawing our identity from who we see around us. We're made to be children who look up first. Like Jesus looked up to his Father in heaven. Heaven is a place that we can't see. It's a word we give for the spiritual air. It's a reality that we can't see, but it's real. It says in the Bible that Jesus does only what he hears his Father ask him to do. God is spirit, but he's real. And this child has grown up and he's been doing what his Father asked him. He's been going around teaching, healing the sick, freeing those who are tormented. He's been sharing the goodness of God. And it is a different kind of goodness from anything that human beings can give to each other. The world needs a hope beyond our human schemes and inventions. We've come a long way, but the further along we go, the more difficulties we seem to plunge ourselves into. When we only look around, we have no spiritual rudder to steer us through life. And the lack of that rudder means that we create a chaotic environment on this planet. Do you know that 37,000 people are forced to flee their homes each day, it's reckoned? They become refugees or displaced people. Tens of millions of people, often refugees for years and years and years. We invent new technologies. They should be a blessing, but as we just do our looking around, we struggle with self-control, we struggle with wisdom, and we see the damage that's being wrought. Young people with mental health issues and challenges because of the pressure of what they view. Parents struggling to control their own devices. Individualism is replacing community. We can do all we want, but when we can do whatever we want, we become selfish, don't we? And the less people commit in relationships, the less others commit. The lower the standard becomes. And we just take from each other rather than committing to one another. For me, one of the greatest privileges is when 2 people commit their lives together in marriage. I married someone just a few weeks ago, and I see 2 people coming together. They were in their 40s. But what a privilege to see 2 people, 2 hearts joined as one for the rest of their days. And in this picture here, we see Jesus modeling family, praying to his Father, trusting in him. We're created to look up beyond ourselves. That's what the shepherds were doing. They were poor. No one was interested in them. They were probably pretty smelly. They were probably pretty dirty. But they looked up and they saw some hope. So where do we look up at Christmas time? Christmas in my house when I was growing up, I have to say, it always felt pretty edgy. I never knew what was going to happen. The wine and the spirits would flow very freely, and I never knew which way things were going to go. No one seemed to have an idea about what any of it was about. It didn't feel very personal. Jesus was never mentioned in Christmas. You see, Christmas is the name of the festival. Jesus is the person the festival is for. Christ means the anointed one. It means God's anointed, the Messiah. Christianity is a religion. Jesus is a person. It's personal. His name means God saves. Everything about his life is God's intention to save. God saves. It's not about a religion. Religions separate us so often from God by rules and traditions. Religions put leaders and prophets and vicars and holy people and priests between humans and some remote God. But the shepherds looked up. They didn't qualify, but they looked up and they saw God that day. They saw God. Nearly all the people that Jesus ministered to didn't qualify. They didn't qualify as holy people, as leaders. They didn't fit. They didn't tick the religious criteria. The lepers, the begging blind man, the hemorrhaging woman, the hated collaborator tax collector, the enemy across the borders, the mentally ill, the demon-possessed, they were the ones that Jesus highlighted. Christianity is a religion. Jesus is the person. I call it the Emmanuel difference. Emmanuel means God with us. God with us, for us, not against us, not remote from us. Jesus describes him as the only true God and the Son, Jesus Christ. You loved me before the creation of the world. This is beyond a looking around. You're only going to see this Jesus if you're prepared to humble yourself and look up. My friends, Femi and Mina, went recently to northern Nigeria. They've pioneered a ministry to take the love of God in fresh ways and to bring a sense of unity in Nigeria over these last years. And Mina was telling me how they came back from a place where many Christians and others have been traumatized through violence against them and through loss. They've lost children and loved ones. They're very poor. They tend to just work the land. Compared with us in London, couldn't be further removed. I saw some of the same community a couple of years ago when I was with them in Nigeria, but I haven't ministered in northern Nigeria. Most of them are not able to read or write. But they went and they reminded these women, it was mostly women because the men have been killed. And they reminded them about the love of Jesus, and then they laid hands upon them and they ministered to them. And many, many were physically healed. But more than that, they began to come awake again in their inner being, just through the touch of the love of God. The way of God is not our way. The glory Jesus speaks about in this passage is about loving us as only he can do. The way of Jesus is not about persuading people to agree with us or coercing or doing some of the things that the religious authorities have done in the past in the name of our faith. It's about the touch of God on someone's life. We have to lay down our controls and just humbly say, thank you for giving me life. I'm sorry for my mess-ups. I want the touch of your love. I'm prepared to look up to you. And when we do, we will discover that there is always life to be had. Jesus talks about eternity. He talks about eternity. But really, eternity begins with discovering a God who will never, never leave us or forsake us. He says, I want you to have the joy that I have. I want them to have the same joy. The innkeeper has famously, the poor innkeeper, he gets such a slight every year, doesn't he? But he had no room for Mary. That's what we're being told. That's the thing. He had no room. And in our Western world, how much room are we giving to the deeper things of life? Are we just rushing around trying to prove ourselves? You know, Jesus says, everything I have, I've given them. And, you know, we really don't take anything out after this life. So what are we living for and towards day by day? I believe that we can have an always life. It means we have one greater than ourselves with us, and that he will give us the peace in the storm, the peace when the hour is dangerous, the peace to dare to go to northern Nigeria, the courage to go and minister to those who are hurting, and the purpose that we're made for, because everybody has purpose in their lives. Everybody has the seed of purpose. We're going to take up a collection in a moment for Femi Amina's ministry to Nigeria. It's called Lapis Lazuli. Go and ask them if you want to know what that means. But we're also going to give to XLP, to the work of XLP. And I want to tell you, XLP is a youth organization that ministers across 9 London boroughs, including Camden. We were very privileged and joyful to be able to help Camden XLP begin about 13 years ago, I guess now. And we love the XLP workers, and Rosie and Beth and others. Beth's here. And you can talk to Beth. She's got the cap on and the T-shirt, actually, if you want to find out about XLP. And they go into schools and they mentor young people who are at risk of exclusion, and they offer them hope. But the thing was that, you know, talking about purpose, it was started by a guy called Patrick Reagan. When he was 16 years old, a member of his youth group got stabbed and killed. And the Spirit of God came on him, and he was so stirred by what happened that he was determined to make a difference. And he ended up giving his life to the work of XLP and building up this work, borough by borough, and beginning to extend the love of Jesus through this program. There's no proselytizing. It's faith-based but not faith-biased. They go out with the goodness of God expressed by showing interest in vulnerable young people. What could be better than that? And what could offer more hope in a borough where we've had far too much violence against our young people? Young person against young person. Sue and I, here's an aside, actually went to an XLP event recently, and we saw Will and Kate, as in the royal Will and Kate, because they've become whatever it is when you become, that's it, patrons. So we can always do life, you know, in the storm, we can always do life in relationship with Jesus. I'm going to have to hurry up, I know, because I'm overrunning. But just to encourage you that when we come into this relationship with God, we also discover that we can always be free. Jesus doesn't take us out of this world. He says, I don't come to take you out of this world, but keep them safe from the evil one. They don't belong to this world any more than I do. And in a way, none of us really belong to this world, and this world doesn't belong to us. We belong to the one who made us. We're not made to be tangled up in the world around us. How many of you feel tangled right now? How many of you feel tangled? You know, we sometimes talk about being like birds on a wire. There's a great song about birds on a wire. Many of us carry our past like a bag on our backs, really heavy load. And living free means dealing with our past and knowing Jesus in our present. That's a reality, it's a spiritual reality. Because with Jesus we live free from our past. He heals our past. I can take in my sadness. I can lay down my unforgiveness. I can exchange the lies I believed. And I can be good to myself. Even now, after my past, where I didn't really have a dad, and some of you know this, and I can still be really hard on myself And I know that that's not acceptable because I know there's a God who loves me. So I need to value my own life, not be goaded by my past. I need to have access. I have access to his goodness. So ask yourself, is there anything that stops you being free tonight? Is there anything that's weighing down in your life? As we come into land, as well as being always free, we always have a love that we can go to. Jesus says in the scriptures, Jesus knows he's returning to his Father, but he promises that we will not be left on our own. He sends his Spirit. The Spirit brings the presence of Jesus to us. He says that the love you have for me may be in them, that they may be one as we are one. You know, human beings will never be unified without a love greater than in ourselves. Does that make sense? We need a divine love. Only divine love will overcome the differences that we feel amongst ourselves, between our tribes, our politics, our different cultures. But there is a greater love that brings us all together. It's a love from above. It's an agape love that causes us to serve one another. On our own, human beings can't be unified. But with that greater love, we will know that, and it reconciles families. We see it. It brings us together. It causes people to forgive one another. It changes the heart. Our Spear program, we see lives being changed just by the power of love, of caring for somebody. This kind of love leads to unity. It trumps division, it trumps politics, it trumps bitterness, it trumps and trumps. It overcomes. So I offer you tonight, just offer you the open doorway to know the living God through his Son Jesus, the one who we've spent an hour with quickly, the one who was caught up in discussion with his dad, his heavenly Father, an unseen reality, one who we can always look up to, we can know an always life with, day by day, through every circumstance, one who will bring us freedom and heal us, and one who will pour out his love into our lives. He gave you the hour. How are you going to use it?